Looking back, I should have seen it coming. The signs were there, scattered like breadcrumbs through the last few months of our relationship. But when you've been with someone for 3 years, you don't want to believe the worst. You make excuses, you brush off the doubts, you tell yourself it's just your imagination. That was my mistake. At first, it was little things. Sarah started working late more often. Not unusual during busy seasons, but then came the new perfume, a scent I didn't recognize. Then clothes I had never seen before appeared in our closet. And her phone, her sacred, untouchable phone, was always clutched tightly in her hand or face down on the table. I'm not the jealous type, never have been. But something felt off. The way she'd pull away when I hugged her while she was texting. The way she'd step outside to take calls, always claiming they were work-related. The constant girls' nights with people whose names I had never heard before. Then last Tuesday, I was folding laundry when her phone lit up on the coffee table. A message preview from someone named Ryan popped up. "Miss you already. Last night was..." The rest was cut off, but my stomach dropped. I didn't want to be the guy who snoops through his girlfriend's phone. But at that moment, it felt like the universe was screaming at me to wake up. When she got home that night, I decided to be direct. She was in the kitchen making a smoothie, acting like nothing was wrong. The sound of the blender filled our apartment as I leaned against the doorway watching her. "Who's Ryan?" I asked when she finally turned it off. She froze. Just for a second. Then she did something I wasn't expecting. She smiled. Not her usual warm, teasing smile. This was different. Cold, almost triumphant. "Wondering when you'd finally catch on, Ethan," she said, taking a slow sip. "Ryan's my boss. And yeah, I've been sleeping with him for the past 2 months." She said it so casually, like she was telling me what she had for lunch. No guilt, no shame, just satisfaction. "I needed a real man," she continued, smirking. "Someone who knows what he wants. Not someone who spends his weekends playing video games and talking about his big ideas that never go anywhere." 3 years together. And this was how she saw me. I stared at her, my mind racing. But I didn't feel anger or sadness, just clarity. "Does Emma know?" I asked, thinking of our mutual friend, the one who had introduced us. Sarah's smirk widened. "Oh, she's known for weeks." My stomach twisted. "Most of our friends know," she added, setting down her glass. "They understand that Ryan can actually provide a future, not just dreams and excuses." That hit harder than the cheating itself. These were people we had spent birthdays, holidays, vacations with. People I thought were our friends. They had all known. They had watched this unfold, probably laughed about it behind my back. I pulled out my phone and opened the group chat I had with Emma and Matt. "Is this true? You all knew?" Matt's response came first. "Bro, you're a great guy, but Sarah deserves someone more established. Don't take it personally." Emma chimed in right after. "We didn't want to hurt you, but maybe this is the wake-up call you need." I looked up from my phone to find Sarah watching me waiting. She wanted a reaction, a scene, a dramatic meltdown she could tell everyone about later. Instead, I smiled. A real, genuine smile that caught her off guard. Without a word, I turned and walked to our bedroom. Grabbed my go-bag, one I always kept packed for weekend trips along with my laptop and keys. When I passed through the kitchen again, she was still standing there, but the smirk was slipping. "Where are you going?" she asked. "Out." I paused at the door. "And Sarah, keep the apartment. I'm sure Ryan can help with the rent." I heard her start to say something as I closed the door behind me, but I didn't stop to listen. My phone was already buzzing, probably our so-called friends trying to explain themselves. I turned it off and just drove. I didn't know where I was going. But for the first time in months, I felt like I was heading in the right direction. The next morning, I turned my phone back on after 12 hours of silence. 32 missed calls, 47 unread texts. Most were from Sarah. Some from Matt and Emma. A few from numbers I didn't recognize. But what really caught my attention was the storm of notifications from social media. Sarah had been busy. According to her Instagram story, I was a controlling, jealous boyfriend who monitored her every move. Apparently, I had emotionally manipulated her for years, isolated her from her friends, and threw a violent tantrum when she finally stood up for herself. Each post had hundreds of sympathetic comments, including ones from people I had once considered friends. Then came the real kicker. a tearful video where she claimed I had financially abused her by making her split all our bills 50-50 while I hoarded my money. Rich considering she earned more than me and insisted on that arrangement herself. And then the text that changed everything. A message from Lauren, a former coworker I hadn't spoken to in years. "Hey, you might want to check your email. Something's going around the office about you." My stomach twisted as I logged in. Sure enough, there it was, a company-wide email about creating a safe workplace environment with a thinly veiled reference to recent concerning behaviors from certain employees. No names mentioned, but the timing wasn't subtle. I should have been furious. Maybe I should have fought back immediately. Instead, I felt something else. Curiosity. How far would she take this? Pretty damn far, as it turned out. And that's when I realized if she wanted a war, she was about to get one. I sat in my car for a long time staring at that email. My company wasn't stupid. They wouldn't send something like this without reason, which meant Sarah had been talking, spinning her web of lies further than just social media. I exhaled slowly. I wasn't going to panic. Not yet. Instead, I drove to a small motel on the outskirts of town. Not the most glamorous place, but it was clean, and the owner, an older guy named Pete, seemed decent. He even knocked $20 off my weekly rate when I told him I was going through a breakup. "Been there," he said with a knowing look. "Some people will burn down a whole house just to make sure you don't get to keep the porch." I didn't turn my phone back on for 2 days. When I finally did, the flood of messages was overwhelming. "Sarah, Ethan, please talk to me. I need to explain." "Matt, dude, why'd you just disappear? You're overreacting." Emma. "Look, we didn't handle this right, but can we talk?" And then there were the voicemails. I listened to one from Sarah out of morbid curiosity. She was crying. "Ethan, I don't know why you're doing this. Why are you making me out to be the bad guy? You weren't enough for me, okay? I needed more. That's not a crime. But now you're trying to ruin my life. Just call me, please." I almost laughed. I was ruining her life. She cheated. She lied. She turned our friends against me. And now she was playing the victim. Classic. Then a message from Lauren popped up. "Call me when you can. You're going to want to hear this." I dialed her number. She picked up on the first ring. "Your ex is out for blood," she said bluntly. "Yeah, I figured that out," I muttered. "No, Ethan, you don't get it," she said. "She's been telling people at work that you were emotionally abusive, that you controlled her finances and made her feel unsafe." My grip tightened on the phone. "What?" "It's worse than that," Lauren continued. "She's been talking to HR, dropping hints that she might need to file a formal complaint against you. And Ryan, he's backing her up." That stopped me cold. "Ryan, her boss, the guy she cheated with. What's his angle?" I asked. Lauren hesitated. "I think he's covering his own ass. Word is he's done this before, gotten involved with younger employees, then found ways to push out anyone who might expose him." I leaned back against the headboard of the motel bed, my mind racing. "So if she goes through with this complaint, you could lose your job," Lauren said quietly. I exhaled through my nose. "Okay, Ethan, I'm not going to roll over for this," I cut in. "She wants to lie, fine. Let's see how she handles the truth." Lauren was silent for a moment. Then, to my surprise, she let out a soft laugh. "Good," she said. "I was hoping you'd say that." The next day, I met Lauren at a coffee shop near our office. She looked around nervously before sitting down. "HR hasn't acted on anything yet," she said in a hushed voice. "But it's only a matter of time. You need to get ahead of this." I nodded. "How?" She slid a flash drive across the table. "I've been keeping tabs. Screenshots, emails, messages. Proof that Sarah was the one pushing you away. That she wasn't some helpless victim." I picked up the drive, turning it over in my fingers. "Why are you helping me?" Lauren shrugged. "Because I know what it's like to be on the receiving end of this kind of bullshit. And because Ryan's a creep. He thinks he's untouchable, but he's not." I gave her a long look. "So this is personal for you too." A small smirk played at her lips. "Let's just say I like seeing arrogant people get what's coming to them." I slipped the drive into my pocket. "Then let's make sure they do." That night I started digging. I went through the files Lauren gave me. Screenshots of Sarah flirting with Ryan over company email. Proof that she had initiated their relationship. Messages bragging about how easy it was to manipulate him. But the real goldmine, the recordings. Sarah talking to Emma about how she planned to milk this breakup for sympathy, how she loved the attention, how she was going to make Ethan regret ever thinking he was on my level. It was disgusting, but also perfect. By the time I finished going through everything, I had a plan. Step 1. Control the narrative. I drafted an email to HR attaching some of the more damning evidence. I kept it professional, factual, just enough to plant the seed of doubt. Step 2. Let Sarah bury herself. I knew she wouldn't stop. She'd keep pushing, keep lying. The trick was to let her think she was winning until it was too late to backtrack. And step 3. Well, that part was going to be fun. The next morning, I walked into work like nothing was wrong, smiled at my coworkers, nodded at my manager, pretended I hadn't spent the night preparing for war. When I got to my desk, I saw Sarah standing by the break room deep in conversation with Ryan. She glanced up and met my eyes, and smirked. I smirked right back. She had no idea what was coming. The office felt different that morning. Not because anything had changed yet, but because I had changed. I wasn't walking in as the guy blindsided by betrayal. I was walking in as the guy who knew what was coming. And Sarah, she thought she had already won. She leaned against the break room counter, laughing at something Ryan had said. When she caught my gaze, her smirk widened like she was daring me to react. I didn't. I just walked to my desk, set my bag down, and got to work. Step 1 was already in motion. My email to HR had been sent before I walked into the building. It was professional, straightforward, and packed with just enough evidence to make them think before they blindly took Sarah's side. Now I just had to wait. By lunchtime, the first domino had fallen. Lauren texted me. HR just called Sarah in. She looked pissed. I smirked at my phone. It wasn't an official complaint. HR was just checking in based on some conflicting reports. But it was enough to rattle her. Enough to remind her that this wasn't a one-sided story she got to control. When she returned to her desk, I watched her slam her bag down, typing furiously on her phone. Less than a minute later, Matt messaged me. "Dude, what the hell are you doing?" I stared at the message for a second before replying. "What do you mean? Sarah just told us you're trying to ruin her life." I actually laughed at that one. "She's doing a pretty good job of that on her own." No response. Interesting. The next 2 days passed in a slow, steady buildup of tension. Sarah doubled down on playing the victim. She told anyone who would listen that I was harassing her, that I was obsessed with her, that I was dangerous. But the cracks were already starting to show. For one, she had overplayed her hand. She was trying too hard, spinning too many lies at once. And the people who weren't completely brainwashed by her sob story, they were starting to hesitate. Emma, for example. She stopped texting me accusations, stopped liking Sarah's dramatic posts. And when I walked past her in the hallway, she actually looked away as if she was ashamed. Doubt was creeping in. Good. But then something happened that I wasn't expecting. A private message from someone I barely knew. "Hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I used to work at your company. Can we talk?" It's about Sarah and Ryan. That got my attention. We met at a small diner that evening. She was nervous, kept glancing around like she was afraid of being seen. "I almost didn't message you," she admitted, stirring her coffee. But when I saw what Sarah was doing, I couldn't stay quiet. I leaned forward. "What do you know?" She exhaled. "I was in the same position as you. A few years ago, only I didn't fight back." My stomach tightened. "Ryan did the same thing to me," she continued. "He got close, made promises, then when things started getting messy, he threw me under the bus. I was labeled unstable, unprofessional. Eventually, I had to leave." I stared at her, something ice cold settling in my chest. "And Sarah." She gave a humorless laugh. "She helped him do it." I should have been shocked, but somehow I wasn't. "She's done this before?" I asked. The woman nodded. "She plays innocent, but she's just as manipulative as he is. And now it's your turn." I sat back, absorbing that. It made too much sense. The speed at which she had turned on me, the way she weaponized people's emotions. She knew what she was doing. I looked at the woman across from me. "Why are you telling me this?" A shadow passed over her face. "Because no one warned me." The next morning, I woke up early. My mind was clear, focused. Sarah and Ryan weren't just liars. They were repeat offenders. And now they were about to face someone who wasn't going to roll over and take it. By noon, I had gathered everything. Every screenshot, every recorded conversation, every piece of evidence that showed exactly what they were. Then I made two moves. First, I sent an anonymous tip to the company's board. A neat little package detailing Ryan's pattern of behavior, complete with multiple testimonies from former employees. Second, I made a call. Not to HR, not to my friends. To Ryan's wife. Ryan's wife answered on the third ring. Hello? Her voice was smooth, controlled, the kind of tone that belonged to someone used to handling problems efficiently. Hi, is this Olivia? I asked, keeping my voice calm. Yes, who is this? I hesitated for just a second, then went for it. My name is Ethan. I think we need to talk about your husband. There was silence on the other end. A long, heavy silence. Then finally she spoke. Go on. I hadn't expected her to be so composed. Most people, when faced with something like this, would either panic or hang up. Olivia just waited. So I told her everything. I kept it simple, factual. I told her about Ryan's relationship with Sarah, how it wasn't the first time he had done this. How I had evidence. How I wasn't the only one he had tried to destroy to cover his tracks. When I finished, there was another pause. Then she let out a slow breath. I see. That was it. No outburst, no denial, just acknowledgement. I take it this isn't a surprise, I said carefully. No, she admitted. It's not. That threw me off. Then why are you still with him? I asked before I could stop myself. A bitter laugh. Oh, I've been done with him for a long time, but some things take careful planning. It took me a second to catch her meaning. She wasn't in the dark. She wasn't a victim. She was waiting. And now I had just given her the last piece she needed. I assume you can send me this proof? She asked. I exhaled. Yeah, I'll send everything. Good, she said. And Ethan? Yeah. You might want to keep your distance from Sarah. She's not as smart as she thinks she is, but she's dangerous when cornered. The line went dead. The next morning, I walked into work like nothing had happened. Sarah was already there typing away at her computer like she wasn't trying to destroy my life. Ryan was in his office door shut, probably thinking everything was under control. I almost felt bad for them. Almost. By lunchtime, the first cracks started to show. Lauren texted me. Something's up. HR just pulled Ryan into a meeting. I kept my expression neutral as I read it. Then 5 minutes later, Sarah's phone buzzed on her desk. She glanced at the screen, froze. Then without a word, she grabbed it and walked out. I watched her go, taking a slow sip of my coffee. It was starting. By the time the workday ended, Sarah was rattled. Her usual confidence was gone. She barely spoke to anyone. And when she left, she didn't bother with her usual fake, casual goodbyes. I waited exactly 10 minutes before walking over to Ryan's office. His door was still closed, his blinds shut. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Still nothing. Finally, I just opened the door. Ryan was sitting at his desk, staring at his computer screen like his whole world had just collapsed. Slowly, he looked up at me. What did you do? He asked, his voice hoarse. I just smiled. What do you mean? His hands clenched into fists. Don't play games with me. Olivia, she sent me a message, told me she knows. I leaned against the doorframe, knows what exactly. Ryan's face twisted in anger. You set me up. I tilted my head. No, I just told the truth. You set yourself up. His jaw tightened. He looked like he wanted to throw something. You don't understand what you've done, he hissed. Oh, I think I do. I folded my arms. You should start packing up your office, Ryan. I don't think you'll be here much longer. His face went pale. You can't prove anything. Can't I? I pulled out my phone and tapped the screen. The audio started playing Sarah's own voice, bragging about how she and Ryan had orchestrated everything, how they had done this before. Ryan went still. I let the recording play for another few seconds, then stopped it. HR already has a copy, I said. So does your wife and the board. You might want to get ahead of this while you still have a shred of control. Ryan didn't speak, didn't even move. I turned to leave. Then, at the last second, I glanced back. Oh, and Ryan, I said casually. Tell Sarah I said hi. And then I walked out. That night, I got another text. This one wasn't from Lauren or Olivia. It was from Sarah. You think this is over? I stared at the message for a long moment. Then I smirked. She was scared. Good. Because this was just getting started. Sarah's message lingered on my screen. You think this is over? I leaned back against the cheap motel pillows and exhaled. No surprise there. Sarah had spent years manipulating people into giving her what she wanted. She wasn't the type to go down quietly. But what she didn't understand, what she had never understood, was that I had already won. She just hadn't realized it yet. I set my phone down and closed my eyes. Let her stew. Let her plan whatever desperate move she thought would save her. It wouldn't matter. By the morning, the storm would be in full swing. When I walked into the office, the energy was different. People whispered in corners. Eyes flicked toward Ryan's office, then away. The tension was thick, humming under the surface. Lauren caught up to me before I even reached my desk. "You're not going to believe this," she muttered under her breath. "Try me." She handed me her phone. It was an email from the CEO. Effective immediately, Ryan Mitchell has resigned from his position. I scrolled down. "We take workplace integrity very seriously and appreciate the courage of those who come forward. If any employees have concerns regarding professional conduct in the workplace, HR is available for confidential discussions." I felt a slow grin spread across my face. Ryan didn't even fight it. He must have realized there was no way out. Olivia had him in a vice grip, and once HR got involved, it was checkmate. "What about Sarah?" I asked, handing the phone back. Lauren smirked. "Haven't seen her all morning." "Interesting." I walked to my desk, sat down, and waited. 10 minutes passed. Then 15, then Sarah walked in. She looked rough. Her usual confidence was gone, replaced by something desperate. Her eyes darted around like she was expecting an ambush. She stormed toward me. "We need to talk," she hissed, leaning over my desk. I leaned back in my chair, taking my time before responding. "I'm at work, Sarah," I said casually. "Not a good time." Her jaw clenched. "I know you did this." I raised an eyebrow. "Did what?" Her hands curled into fists. "You set Ryan up." I laughed. Actually laughed. Ryan set himself up. Sarah's face flushed red. "You think you're so smart," she spat. "But you don't get it, Ethan. You never got it." I just tilted my head, waiting. She leaned in closer. "I made you," she whispered, voice sharp. "Without me, you're nothing." That almost made me laugh again. "You know what's funny, Sarah?" I said. "That's exactly what Ryan thought, too." Her expression flickered, just for a second. Then she scoffed and straightened up. "This isn't over," she snapped. Then she turned and stalked off. I didn't stop her. Because she was right. It wasn't over. Not for her. That evening, I got another text. From a number I didn't recognize. "I think we should meet." There was an address attached. A small cafe across town. No name. But I had a feeling I already knew who it was. When I walked in, Olivia was already sitting at a corner table sipping tea like she had all the time in the world. She glanced up, gestured to the chair across from her. "Sit." I did. She studied me for a moment before speaking. "Ryan's done." I nodded. I saw. She smiled slightly. I made sure of it. I believed her. "I wanted to meet you," she continued, "because I think you and I have a mutual problem." I leaned forward. "Sarah." She nodded. "She's desperate," Olivia said. "And desperate people make mistakes. We should make sure her next one doesn't affect either of us." I exhaled. "What do you suggest?" She took a slow sip of tea. "We give her an out." That caught me off guard. An out. Olivia set her cup down. "Sarah's fighting because she still thinks she has something to lose. But if we make sure she doesn't, she'll cut her losses and run." I considered that. "And how do we do that?" Olivia smiled. "We show her just how much worse things could get." The next morning, I sent Sarah an email. No anger, no threats. Just simple cold facts. I laid out everything. The evidence I had on her. The testimonies from people she had screwed over. The fact that Olivia was prepared to drag her into Ryan's divorce proceedings if she didn't disappear. Then at the bottom, a simple sentence. "Walk away, while you still can." An hour later, she responded, "Fine." That was it. No fight. No fight, no last-minute scheme. Just surrender. By the end of the day, Sarah had deleted her social media. She sent HR her resignation, and just like that, she was gone. It was over. For the first time in months, I felt free. And damn, it felt good. Sarah was gone. Not just from the company, but from my life. Her resignation came through by the end of the day, short and impersonal. No goodbye messages, no dramatic exit. Just a quiet departure like she had never been there at all. For someone who had spent so much time trying to control the narrative, it was almost poetic how quickly she disappeared once she realized she had no leverage left. And Ryan, well, his story wasn't over yet. A week after his resignation, news spread that his wife had filed for divorce. Olivia didn't waste time. She took her evidence straight to her lawyer and made sure there was nothing left for him. The house hers. The assets frozen. His career finished. The man who had once looked down on me, who had smirked like he was untouchable, was now a cautionary tale. Lauren sent me a text when she found out. Guess Ryan should have read the fine print before marrying a lawyer. I chuckled. Olivia had been playing the long game and she had won. As for the people who took Sarah's side, they tried to backtrack. Matt sent me a long-winded apology about how he should have listened and how he got caught up in the wrong version of events. Emma followed with something similar, claiming she had felt pressured and that she had never really believed Sarah. I didn't reply to either of them. Because here's the thing about betrayal: once it happens, the damage is done. People like Matt and Emma had chosen to believe Sarah, chosen to turn their backs on me when it mattered most. And now that the truth was out, they wanted to pretend none of it had happened. No thanks. Let them sit with their guilt. One evening, Pete, the owner of the motel I had been staying at, knocked on my door. "You ever think about moving out of here?" he asked casually, leaning against the doorframe. I smirked. "You kicking me out?" "Nah," he said, "but I think you're done hiding." He wasn't wrong. I had been staying at that motel like I was waiting for something, some final sign that it was okay to move on. But I didn't need a sign. I already knew. The next morning, I signed a lease for a new apartment. A place that was mine, not a shared space filled with ghosts of the past. And when I moved in, it felt like a fresh start. Like I had finally closed the book on this whole mess. The last loose thread came 2 weeks later. A message request on Instagram. From Sarah. I almost didn't open it. But curiosity won. "I hope you're happy." That was all she wrote. No apology, no explanation. Just bitterness? I stared at the message for a moment before deleting it. Because the truth was, I was happy. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't need revenge. I had something better. I had peace. And that was the best revenge of all. Story 2. My mother termed me her practice run after taking out a $70,000 debt in my name. "Sarah is even more talented than you." I said, she said. I froze all of the accounts that had my name on them and sent her a book called Parenting for Beginners. And it was only page 1 when she began to scream, "Sarah is even more talented than you." As if the microwave lasagna had particularly insulted her, Mom replied, digging her fork into it. She would never sign a loan without reading it because she would be too foolish. However, you were the practice run every time. I remained silent. Not quite yet. Her golden girl was, of course, Sarah. The one who made wise decisions such as returning home permanently after being knocked up at the age of 22. The person who used 2 credit cards to their limit last year and was mysteriously rewarded with a therapeutic retreat in Sedona, which I covered for May. The guinea pig was me. The error before to the finished output. I glanced across the table at my mother. She was wearing her fleece robe as usual. Even with her hair in an untidy bun, she managed to project the image of the queen of a suburban kingdom based on overdrafts and unpaid bills. To her right was Dad. As usual, they were silent, only joining in to show agreement when she required a chorus. 3 weeks prior, I became aware that something was off. Before going to work on a Friday morning, I was refreshing my bank account. I had less money in my bank account than I had anticipated. Like $70,000 is lacking in some way. A little low. I went cold. Logged in once more. Everything was double-checked. I saw it in my name alone at that point. Opened half a year ago. $70,000. I gazed at the display. My coffee went cold for so long. I hadn't borrowed any money. I hadn't even lately applied for a credit card. However, someone had. They also call me with that name. My social. I knew that my mother was out there. I foolishly assumed she would weep or deny it when I addressed her face to face, or at least tell a better falsehood. Rather, she chuckled. She added nonchalantly, washing a cup in the sink as if she hadn't just committed financial identity fraud. "You should thank me. It was not taken for me, for the sake of the family. Sarah required assistance. You are aware of how difficult it has been for her. Assist." I said it again, hardly able to contain myself. With what, she's going to drop out of graduate school again, and she's getting a new SUV, not even blinking. It goes beyond school. She has 2 kids. Actual obligations. Not like you. I didn't want to confess how much that section hurt. I have a full-time job. I live by myself. For the last 5 years, I have intermittently paid their bills, groceries, electricity, and even once helped them out of a payday loan. However, none of that mattered. Not to her. To her. I remained the test run. The errors from which she gained knowledge. Sarah is even more talented than you. She said it again. You're fortunate that we even have faith in you for such matters. Such like this. As though it was an act of faith to use my name to obtain a sizable loan and then give the money to my sister. I left without saying anything. I shipped her a book I purchased from Amazon that evening. Parenting for Novices. Just that no remark. I also froze all of the accounts that had my name on them the next morning. Banking, utilities, and credit. Everything. That was when the yelling began. And that was only the first page. It wasn't as bad as the shouting, though I wish I could say that. That strange, sticky, deliberate stillness was followed by silence. The type that can only be weaponized by families like mine. I sent the book and locked the accounts, but nobody called. Not a single text, not even one of Mom's emoticons filled with remorse. Nothing at all. 2 days later, Sarah made a Facebook status update. Giving comes naturally to certain people. Some are just vacant. I'm grateful for those who come through when it matters. Single mothers with a real family hashtag. Powerful. Emojis of hearts and sympathy were common in the comments. Even one of our aunts added something. Sarah, you are the foundation of our family. I felt like tossing my phone. I felt like screaming. For the backbone, you're welcome. Her spine was compensated for by me. I screen cap everything instead. On that day, I made a practice run evidence folder on my desktop. It became worse the further I delved. I obtained my complete credit report. It turns out that there were other issues than the $70,000 debt. A year ago, a retail credit line was also issued in my name. Furniture and electronics. A flat screen was brought to the home of Mom and Dad. I purported to be when I contacted the store. I was doing a family audit according to my father. Oh yeah, we love working with your wife, the woman on the phone replied, laughing. She's very lovely all the time. Isn't that sweet? The same woman who, when I was 17, informed me that we may have lived if we hadn't had you so young. It was more than simply the money, though. They all expected me to continue in this manner. My dad texted me a week after the account was frozen. Your mom isn't feeling well. Sarah needs to pay for her automobile this month. Perhaps you might help. As if I hadn't just learned that he co-signed my name on 2 of his failing business endeavors, one of which was in collections, she emphasized. My response was a simple no. After 10 minutes, I was re-added to the family group chat, which I had been absent from for months. Only Family Real Ones remained as the new name. Sarah's initial message. Remember your mother's birthday. Next weekend is dinner, RSVP only. Since some individuals are too busy protecting themselves, Dad is paying the cost. They were making fun of me. Making fun of me for defending myself against their transgressions. This is war, I thought, as I gazed at the TV. However, it wasn't until the screenshots that things really took off. You see, they didn't undervalue me alone. A girl called Elise sent me a message request on Instagram one evening. I used to date your cousin Tyler, but you don't know me. I wanted to let you know that I believe you after seeing your mother's Facebook post regarding family treachery. We spoke for hours on end. Elise has been around our family for a year. I didn't even know what she told me. He's simply a paycheck with a tongue, as Sarah once quipped. We'd spend every winter in Aspen if you weren't such a whiner. Or how Mom had literally boasted, that she had gotten the house through the refinance downturn by using my credit. You didn't mind at least, she murmured softly. She gave the impression that you didn't mind being used. No, I wasn't. I was done acting like I was. I returned to the hard disk years ago at that point. I had scanned all of the emails, statements, screenshots, and even voicemails from the past. A tape of Mom and Anthony laughing was there. Yes, he will. He always does. The advantage of having a tester child is that you get rid of all the pests beforehand. Sarah is fortunate that we got him first. Something broke inside of me. Something weighty, something ancient. I printed the transcript that evening, labeled it Exhibit A Tester Kid, and placed it in a manila folder. Then the last straw appeared. I received a notification that my student loan account had been attempted to be accessed. How did I know Sarah, since the recovery email was mine, and she attempted to reset the password? She was still attempting to obtain additional funds. Still squeezing, still digging, still thinking I'd say nothing. Because the practice run accomplishes that. However, it is no longer the case. I made a reservation for supper the next morning in a public neutral location. My parents received the invitation from me. Not Sarah, just them. A message is attached. Let's have one final conversation. But you'll want to bring a lawyer. They turned up 15 minutes late. Not due of traffic, not because they were busy, because they wanted me to wait. Power play, delay, dominance, Mom's specialty. She strolled in first wearing her smug little. Assume that I am the victim. The smile that came next. Keep quiet, tense, as if he anticipated something, but was unaware of the severity of the situation. Fake Ivy and Sinatra was playing over the poor Italian restaurant where they sat down across from me at the booth. However, I deliberately chose it. The occasion was to be a funeral. Pasta might as well be served. What is this about, then? As if I were wasting their time, Mom inquired. Couldn't you just give a call? I didn't respond. Rather, I pushed a folder with the elegant title, Family Fraud Volume 1, across the table. She arched an eyebrow. Dad left it alone. I am aware of the loan, I said. The one with my name on it. I am also aware of the second one. The fabricated work background and address. The application that I co-signed using my SSN. Dad moved. I leaned in, and I am aware of Sarah's phone conversation to the loan firm last week in which she pretended to be me. Mom blinked slowly. I took out my phone at that point. Pressed the play button. The speaker began to play a crackling recording. Indeed, my name is Jacob. Birth date January 14th, 1993. My gateway was no longer accessible. Is it possible for us to change the password? It was my sister's tone, her cadence, her phony customer service voice, not mine. She was always manipulating others. Mom lunged forward and grabbed the phone as if she could swipe it clean. This is against the law, she growled. No, I replied loudly enough for tables close to look over. It's against the law what you did. It's insurance. Dad attempted to act as a mediator. You have no idea how difficult it has been. Sarah is having trouble. All we were attempting to do was maintain stability. Steady, I chuckled. You funded an online MBA and a dream using my identity. She didn't finish. I removed the second file at that point. Voicemails, emails, and screenshots. One other thing too, a bank statement in print. It displayed the down payment of $22,000 for a Tesla 3 weeks after the loan deposit. Since all I see here are luxury seats and self-driving cars, I asked you to reiterate how Sarah's children needed food. Then the last blow was delivered. I took a tiny box out of my suitcase and set it carefully on the table. Dad seemed perplexed. I opened it since Mom hadn't touched it. There was a USB device and a printed screenshot beside it, an altered image that Sarah shared on Instagram. I am fortunate to be surrounded by the people that are most important in the picture. Mom, Dad, Sarah, her partner, the children. Despite not being in the picture, my name was tagged. To give the impression that I was involved, they had put the tag. I turned the page. The next image shows a copy of my birth certificate with a single red-circled word on it. Mother, who is not married. I glanced at my mother. Did you let Sarah know that I wasn't my father's child? Is that the reason I'm the test run, as I was never meant to be here? As if someone had busted a window, the air escaped from the table. Mom didn't dispute it. She remained silent. As if she had dropped a bomb in his lap, Dad gave her a look. You informed me that he began. She scolded, I told you enough. Nothing changes as a result. Your son still exists. You brought him up, I had trembling hands. Out of anger, not fear. I wasn't raised by you. My voice was quiet as I said, I was trained like a dog by you to sit, retrieve, and give me my wallet. At that moment, the door behind them opened and a person entered. A lady wearing a gray jacket. Tidy, written. I have a clipboard. Nora was her name. She was also the lending company's fraud investigator. I got up and gestured to her. Mom's gaze widened. Dad appeared to have ingested glass. Mom murmured that she wasn't meant to be here. No, I said. The court is where she should be. However, she consented to dedicate 5 minutes of her day to explaining the following steps in detail. After taking a seat, Nora opened a folder. This account. According to her, touching the first page is being investigated by the federal government because of unlawful access, fraudulent papers, and identity theft. We have verified using speech recognition software that the call to change the password was not made by the original account holder, and the principal signatory is being investigated. Mom's jaw dropped, but Nora continued. Additionally, the IRS has been informed. Keep quiet. This is not possible. At last, Dad mumbled. I grinned. I'm not going to do it. Did you? The only person pushing play is myself. I got up to go. Mom put her hand out and took hold of my wrist. Please, she said softly. Keep this family together. I leaned closer, calm and frigid. The moment you called me a practice run, this family fell apart. You ought to have been aware. Trials have repercussions. I turned and left after that. I could hear the faint ruffle of apprehension and the click of Nora's pin behind me. I didn't rant when I went live on TikTok 3 days after the meal. Not to weep, to record. It was a straightforward video. I was sitting in my living room with the family fraud manila folder in my hand. I didn't speak louder. I didn't embellish. I just outlined it. Loan of $70,000 in my name. I never used another $12,000 in revolving credit lines. Text screen grabs in which my sister referred to me as a walking wallet. She produced audio that was edited to give the impression that I was threatening her. My mother's voicemail line. Everything we gave you, even your life, is something you owe us. Like fire in a parched jungle, the sentence struck the algorithm. The video received 1.4 million views in a single day. I then dropped the second part. This one, much more operative. I guided them through a PowerPoint presentation. Not a joke. Practice Run, an inherited dysfunction case study. It included receipts, charts, and presentations. I concluded it by, I'm not yours to utilize. Destroy my reputation. Pretend to be forgiving, then use family as a shield. I'm not a son. I served as your safety net. I've also severed the rope. The remarks erupted at that moment. It was embroidered by people. The therapist responded. I was asked to talk on a podcast. A charity organization that fights financial abuse even DM'd me to ask whether they could tell the tale. My voice was finally louder than theirs, so I answered yes. 2 days later, Sarah uploaded her own video. There were theatrical sighs and tear-streaked faces in a shaky iPhone film that was half-muttered. I was lying, she said. That my treachery caused anguish to the family. That I destroyed lives on social media. He's doing this to get attention, she claimed. He has only ever desired it. I responded by playing a single clip from her voice memo that I had retrieved from the hard drive. She neglected to delete. To be honest, every time I add a caption, I just weep and tell him that my mother made me do it. This time, how is that going 10 million views? I wasn't just making noise, though. My life was being rebuilt. I got legal counsel and closed all of the phony accounts. My credit cleared, the loan business unfrozen my name, and sent Mom and Sarah a letter stating that they were now directly responsible for the obligation. Additionally, I uploaded a little video of myself grinning while reading that sentence out loud. Well done. At last, you are self-sufficient. The greatest thing, though, after reading the piece, I received an email with a job offer from one of the largest cybersecurity companies in the nation. They suggested we should hire anyone who can perform under pressure, as you just did. It took me 2 weeks to sign the contract. 6 people in the distance. Complete advantages. First salary. I put it in a frame. The frame's caption: the trial was successful. What about the family? They didn't take it well, I see. Aunt Lisa made a status update on Facebook. The fact that individuals will sell their own blood for views is unsettling, Uncle Dave said. We must return to a time when children held their parents in high regard. However, the other's quiet was deafening. A relative of mine DM'd me. I saw it every time, just so you know. What they carried out. I simply didn't know how to express myself. It's too late now. Every disguise in the family wardrobe had been torched by the truth, which was like a wildfire. My parents accused me of emotional defamation and demanded that I delete any libelous text from the bottom of a certified letter they sent me in shaky handwriting 3 weeks after everything broke. The letter was written and used pseudo-legal terminology. My mother had written, "Stop, please. Everything is being ruined by you." I didn't respond. I chose to do what I had been itching to do ever since this whole thing started. I made a sweatshirt with bright white and black wording over the breast for myself as a reminder. In little print practice runs beneath it. Passed with honors. Hundreds of orders came in, followed by thousands. Money was not the issue. The message was at issue. Because they utilized the ghost for each and every one of us, the firstborn fixers. Up until this point, 100 more people were silently observing. The last nail. I purchased the domain name, made the website easy. My account, the supporting documentation, the chronology, and connections to services for credit protection. How to check yourself for identity theft, and how to spot family manipulation. It was no longer retaliation. It was a manual. I also penned a statement that still chills me to this day on the first page. I managed to leave the lab, but they made me the practice kit. There was a knock first. Nor intimidating nor loud. Simply informal. Similar to the knocks someone employs when they believe they are still permitted in. Sarah was standing there when I opened the door. No filters, no camera, no phony tears. Her USB stick, lifeless eyes, and simple hoodie. "I have something to show you," she said. I ought to have shut the door. I didn't. It wasn't because I didn't forgive her, but rather because there was something strange about her expression. She seemed frightened, not at fault, horrified. She entered hesitantly and sat on the edge of my couch as if it were about to bite her. I didn't offer forgiveness or coffee, nothing but quiet. Then she muttered, "The practice run was never you." I burst out laughing. "Really, we only envisioned 20 years of credit theft and manipulation." She didn't recoil. "Just watch," she remarked after plugging in the USB. So I did. The folder was called Mom's Drive. Dozens of documents, old emails, scans, and court documents. Until I read a paper from 18 years ago, it initially appeared to be more of the same. A declaration notarized. A guardianship arrangement was in place. For Sarah, not for me. I gazed at the display. It took a moment for my thinking to adjust. "What is this?" Sarah's eyes shifted to the ground. "Mom isn't my biological mother." She spoke in a bland tone. It was hollow, like a fact she had held for so long that it had withered and no longer hurt. Adopted I am, not in a legal sense. Silently. I was in another state because of Mom's older sister. Released me. I was taken in by our mother. Informed the family that we were related. Claimed to be assisting. She simply kept me after that. I blinked. "Hold on, you're not." She gave a headshake. She isn't my biological mother. Yes, you are. Quiet, not in the room alone, in my mind. Time paused. What Sarah's eyes were blue like mine when she gazed at me. The same way my fingers curl, so did hers. She whispered when she was anxious. After everything, I completed the DNA test last year. I believed that I may have been adopted or something. Not by strangers, though. I got to my feet. My legs trembled. She continued to speak. When Mom was 17, you were born. Then you were taken by her parents. Like their own, they raised you. She had to pretend to be your sister. The same cycle then began when she gave birth to me at the age of 24. She kept me this time, though. However, she never forgiven you for being alive. You were the reminder, which is why she detested you. The discoloration. The trial. In me, she failed. Her second opportunity was with me. My entire world fell apart. I was never the test subject. The truth was me. She took a breath and buried Sarah. I have nothing to ask for here. I simply wanted to let you know before everything goes wrong. I didn't inquire about her meaning. I didn't have to because my phone broke the next morning. Breaking from the local news station. A former loan officer and social worker is being investigated for tax fraud, identity theft, and illegal guardianship. A picture mom was being led out of a courthouse. It turns out that in the 1990s, the same social worker who assisted me in processing my fictitious school loans had also lost records. She made an agreement with her mother to swap silence for kickbacks. However, it failed to hold up. Because an army is not necessary for truth. All it takes is one survivor who won't stop talking. I didn't go see her. I didn't write. I didn't message you. However, I took another action. I altered the headline when I last visited my website. It was no longer stated. I was forced to take the practice run. It said, "Until I came back to testify, they made me vanish." A new tagline underneath that. Nor the start, nor the finish. Only the evidence. A few days later, Sarah sent me an email. No topic line, only 2 words. I said, "I'm sorry too." However, we now know who is actually on trial. And I wasn't the one this time. Story 3. Clown thanks for the cash. Don't come, please. My sister cashed my money and laughed. Perfect, I said with a smile. On the big day, I submitted an official notice canceling the wedding and surreptitiously canceled the transfers that evening. The arena was silent and deserted as a huge black box was wheeled in. Then the show began. Clown thanks for the cash. Emma's voice cut like a dagger across the family group chat as she chuckled. Just don't come. I gazed at the text. At the top of my screen, the payment notification is still active. She claimed that $2,500 had been sent directly into her account for wedding-related expenses. Necessities like matching silk robes for her and her bridesmaids and a spa weekend. Through the text, I seemed to be able to hear her smug chuckle. Excellent, I responded back, smiling at my laptop. It wasn't a smile of friendliness. It wasn't a grin of forgiveness. It was the type of smile you give someone immediately before you ignite the match. That evening, while Emma and my parents likely raised a glass to their own genius, I surreptitiously checked all of the payment portals associated with the wedding, including those for the caterer's venue florist and photographer. I then froze the payments one by one. No reimbursement. Not a warning. Simply frozen. You wouldn't believe how simple it was when the contracts are in your name. Generosity is a funny thing. Before realizing it came with power they didn't understand, they adored it. I sent the last mail after that. Not to the family group chat, not to Emma. I forwarded it to all of the guests. An event update body in a straightforward BCC email topic. Emma and Derek's wedding has been called off. Please don't go to the location. More information will be provided soon. I appreciate your understanding. No apology, no explanation. All that was left of her big day was a black hole. The text began to pour in by daybreak. Confusion, I suppose. Suppliers, enraged. Emma, quiet. I was informed by the venue workers that they had never witnessed something such. Half-assembled florists squabbling in the parking lot chairs, still in plastic tables. After I had set up a huge black box that was 6 feet broad and 10 feet tall, it arrived on schedule on a dolly and moved into the silent, empty corridor. Nobody was aware of its contents. They would, but not yet, as well as when they did. He would never be viewed the same way by anyone again. It was 2 months before chaos erupted. I was still the idiot who thought it was important to aid relatives. Emma had spent 10 years organizing her wedding as if it were the most important royal occasion. She wanted everything to be Instagrammable, including a statement cake, a designer clothing, and a unique location. And to whom did she seek assistance? Me. Because I had a reliable employment. As I didn't voice any complaints. As they were aware of my funds. Since I was the trustworthy one, it began modestly. Here and there, a couple $100. Are you able to pay the deposit next paycheck? I'll reimburse you. Just assist the photographer. Mom promised to divide it. There was always a fresh falsehood after every promise, and I always reminded myself that it was family. It was my younger sister, Emma, but I knew better in my heart. Naturally, Dad's poison was different. He made no overt requests for money. He insisted on it. True guys don't take advantage of their families. Once, when I was hesitant to give him a credit card for a minor emergency cost, he stated, "She was the quiet martyr, Mom. Only till the wedding is over." Instead of assisting a pampered adult kid, she would groan as if she were bearing the weight of the world. The others were worse. At a family cookout, my cousin began to fool around. "Loud enough for everyone to hear," one of them remarked. "When will Emma include Big Bro as a sponsor on the wedding invitations?" Everyone chuckled. Emma too. I laughed too hard. False. Counting from 10 backwards. Thus, I refrained from hurling a bottle of beer across the yard. The worst part followed. One evening, Emma shared a picture of herself carrying the personalized bridal gown, and the family group chat went crazy. $8,000 for fantasy and lace. She penned a note of gratitude to the actual people who made this possible underneath. Without my future spouse and my incredible friends, I couldn't have succeeded. Don't bring me up. Not even a tag. I spent a lot of time looking at the screen. I get a sensation in my chest. Tear and twist. I hadn't only donated cash. That outfit had been paid for by me. She really laughed and told to calm down when I challenged her about it. "You know it doesn't really matter. You're not the vibe. You're simply the money." "Well, son, you can't buy love," my father remarked, giving me a pat on the back. "Before you find yourself alone, learn that." They saw me as a clown who covered the expenses but avoided being in the pictures. Then things worsened. I discovered that $200 was gone from my checking account 2 weeks before to the wedding. Transfer without authorization. Indeed, who was the owner of the associated account, Emma's? She said it was an error when I questioned her about it. Because she believed it to be her own story. Furthermore, because I already make so much, what's the big deal? I went cold. This went beyond just rudeness. It was stealing. This was betrayal disguised as dazzling artificial nails and a false grin. Mom silenced when I told her. "Let's avoid dramatizing the wedding," I informed my father. He let out a bark. "You're an adult who is upset about a few dollars." I became aware that I had been alone for a while at that same moment. The humiliation in public. 1 week prior to the big day, the last slap occurred. A TikTok was posted by Emma. I had no idea that she had filmed it. I was standing awkwardly reading through my phone while waiting outside a bridal shop with her dress bag in hand. She had captioned it. "Thank you for the money when your brother is your wedding sponsor." It spread like wildfire. Hundreds of comments and tens of thousands of views, giggling at the pitiful brother who is footing the bill. I was even recognized from my job. "Hey, is that you?" My colleague sent me a screenshot via SMS. I became numb, and then I saw the evidence with my own eyes. I discovered everything that same evening when browsing her wedding planning app, which she had inadvertently left open on my laptop. Spreadsheets that detail the precise way she allocated the sponsor funds amongst spa days and pals. She joked in our group conversations that she could pretend to weep if I ever became suspicious, calling me Plan B and walking ATM voice memos. There was more than one negative instance. It was intentional. It was practiced. They were who they were. The strategy. I downloaded everything of it. Every voice memo, every receipt, every conversation. I then reclined in my chair and gazed out the window, which was dark. Like many stars, the city lights flash. They wanted a clown, I concluded. All right, I put up the best performance in the world for them, the preparation for the collapse. 2 days prior to the wedding, the venue's last payments were due. Whose card was on file, you ask? Mine. I could have just called it quits. It would have been mercy, though. I wanted them to see it fall apart. I froze each payment instead. The caterer and the venue are both frozen. The florist froze. The DJ froze. I did not make a call. I didn't elaborate. I just waited for the stillness to deepen. I distributed the message to the visitors in the interim. The wedding has been canceled. Please don't come. Additionally, I made arrangements for a final delivery to the location. The enormous black box. It would be visible to them. Everyone would, as well as when they opened it. As the facts came to light, they would recognize the precise person who drew back the curtain like smoke from a botched magic performance. It wouldn't be the clown either. It would be responsible for their own embarrassment. Emma's special day began with a gloomy and dreary morning. Even she was unable to ignore the omen. I got there early, not in the role of a brother, not as a visitor even, as the mastermind of her ideal humiliation. The place seemed oddly quiet. White chair rows with half-empty tables, centerpieces that are fading. Unpaid caterers who had left them behind. Don't laugh. Not a word. No procession of visitors arriving. Just strain and chilly wind. Sufficiently thick to cut through. Emma, wearing a $1,000 lace dress, was pacing close to the entrance. Her phone was held up to her ear. There was panic in every step. Across the deserted courtyard, her voice broke. Where is everyone? There where? She called once more. Once more, her sanity was being eroded by every ignored call. Red-faced and yelling, Dad rushed to the event planner. You are to blame for this. Something went wrong on your end. The coordinator simply shook her head, a weary lady who appeared to despise her work even more than usual. No, sir. Yesterday we were informed that the event had been canceled. We posted the advisory and notified vendors. Emma's shrieking turned on. What? Take note. By whom was it sent? I watched from a distance like a composed gladiator spectator as it all happened. And finally, the icing on the cake. The driveway was approached by a delivery van. Everybody froze. A huge matte black box was carefully rolled out on a dolly by 2 men in black uniforms, 6 feet in diameter, 10 feet in height, no markings, no labels. Emma's face contorted in fear and bewilderment. What is that? Dad shouted at the guys. Hello, we don't own that. Leave it here, however. Since I had signed the delivery order, the delivery men disregarded him. The box was placed exactly in the middle of the vacant wedding arch. The throng. How little. Venue personnel were present, perplexed. Caterers. Emma's 2 bewildered bridesmaids watched in paralyzed silence. Then the mechanism inside the box clicked. The front panel came open with a loud boom and now leaped. A clown, completely dressed, wild red hair, large polka dot outfit, gigantic painted smile in one hand, a giant cardboard placard. Wedding canceled in the other, an air horn. The clown let out a thunderous honk and began giggling. Not just laughing, cackling frantic, uncontrollable screeching laughter that rang throughout the empty venue like a ghost curse. With one gloved hand leaping to her mouth, Emma stumbled backward. No, she muttered. This is not taking place. This is not taking place." She hurriedly looked at the bridesmaids, her mother and her father, but no one else was available. No applause, no guests, no music. The clown, who held the flashing sign high over his head and danced maniacally around her wedding, was the only one who ruined it. Dad fell crashing after slipping on the stone walkway while attempting to charge at the clown. Mom sank onto one of the vacant seats and began to cry. Emma stood still, her mouth wide in a mute scream, her eyes hazy. Calm and methodical, I took a step forward. "Searching for your visitors." Her voice was clear yet quiet as I inquired. She turned to face me. Enraged. Broken. "You. Did you do this?" I gave a shrug. "What did you do?" "Alert them about a tentless circus. Inform them that the featured performer was a scam, which is why the performance was canceled." She had heavy, black rivers of makeup streaming down her cheeks. The expensive garment suddenly resembled a cheesy Halloween party costume. The clown joyfully blasted the air horn as he skipped by one again. At the last end, Emma hurled her bouquet at the clown and let out a savage animal scream that ripped from her chest. It was a long way off. Still laughing, the clown bowed theatrically before falling to the ground and waving goodbye like a performer leaving the stage. It was done. Not in a big way. With a yell rather than a muttered apology. A ruined girl wearing a filthy white dress and a clown, standing by themselves beneath a vacant arch. I turned around and left. The ideal conclusion to a drama that had been rigged against me from the beginning, the sound of that hysterical, hollow laughter trailing me like a soundtrack. Now, however, their performance was canceled and I was now the director. I left before seeing the final collapse. Not necessary. Even when you're not looking at anything, you can tell it's burning. I only looked at my phone once that evening. Mom missed many of calls, and Dad missed a few. Emma amazingly left a series of voicemails that ranged from threatening to pleading. "Make this right. I'll take you to court. Please. You're not understanding. I still consider you my brother." I didn't respond to any of them. Rather, I sat in the little apartment at my kitchen table. I watched the city lights flicker outside, already half-packed to go. The quiet and the fact that they couldn't get through to me for the first time in years felt freeing. The fallout. Their tale began to change over the next few days. Emma shared mysterious posts on the internet. "Family may betray you in the worst ways at times." Dad shared a couple Facebook groups with his version. "People become wild when they have money. We don't forget, but we do forgive." "Pardon me," I chuckled. "After robbing you of your wallet and punching you in the face, they would urge you to apologize for causing them harm." The trick was that no one gave a damn. No widespread pity for them. No indignation. By Monday, most people had gone on. Only Emma's grandiose illusions made the wedding a significant occasion. My own scheme. That week, I worked on improving myself. I left my position. I declared, "I'm done letting people take advantage of me starting today," as I entered my boss's office and handed over a tidy little resignation letter. She gave a nod, as if she knew more than she said. I had previously secured an alternative, a minor opportunity upstate. It was a modest property care contract in a little-known lakeside town. Nothing spectacular. It was mine, though. My choice. My fresh start. The surprising turn. Until the letter arrived, I assumed that was all. 1 week following the non-wedding. A scuffed envelope was hidden behind the door of my flat. No address for return. It only has my name. A brief printed letter from Emma's former husband, Derek. I read that and sat down hard. "I thought you might be curious. She never captured my heart. I was coerced into becoming engaged by her. I was on the verge of withdrawing when I heard what you did. I was saved by you. I'm leaving. Departed the town. Don't try to find me, but I'm grateful." Extortion. The word reverberated. 3 times I read it again. Derek wasn't as cowardly as I had assumed. He was confined, manipulated. For years, I had been the same. The only thing that had a gleaming diamond on it was his leash, which somehow channeled all of my rage through the debris. I walked away. I had also saved another person, without even considering the family's final efforts. On the same day, Mom phoned once more. At last, I responded. "Please," she said right away. "No. Hi there. No room to breathe. Emma is not feeling good. She isn't eating. She's not sleeping. She claims that you destroyed her life. This has to be fixed, not my circus." Calmly, I said. "My monkeys? No. Her brother was meant to be you." With a feigned worry, Mom snapped the syrup. "Do you believe that abandoning her in this way improves you?" I grinned covertly. "It doesn't improve me," I said. "I feel liberated by it." I ended the call. I banned their phone numbers. I signed a new lease, updated my email, and erased the previous group conversations. The last thing I did before leaving town. I stopped one last time. A few months ago, Emma was diligently gathering funds for her ideal wedding when the bank closed. Using my name as a contingency, she had also persuaded my parents to co-sign solely. They assumed I wouldn't notice, believed that I would always be there to save them. They were mistaken. I presented a pile of papers to the bank. Evidence of fraud, retraction of consent, request a thorough inquiry. Unbeknownst to them, their small financial house of cards was about to fall apart, the exact cornerstone upon which they erected their lives. I was no longer willing to forgive them, keep quiet, or clean up their trash. They would be forced to dwell in the debris. A fresh start. After 2 weeks, I found myself standing on a tiny porch with a view of a silver lake. No urgent texts, no ringing phones. Don't pretend to cry. Nothing, just whined among the trees, and the air's first hint of autumnal scent. That morning, I signed the last documents. I was the official owner of the maintenance company. Old, honest, although a touch worn down. It was accompanied by a little cottage, simple yet sturdy. On the same day, I moved in. I carried everything by myself, box after box. Nothing from my previous life crossed the threshold. I changed my phone number when I was finished. It was printed out, it was framed, it was hung above the entrance. Just above it, a little sign made of wood. I carved myself. Clouds are not permitted. After 3 months, a letter arrived. The envelope had no name on it, not a stamp, supplied by hand. On my cottage porch beneath a blue and gold-smeared sky, I opened it. Within one piece of paper. "You ought to return home. Emma is now attending therapy. You are forgiven by her. Without you, Mom adds, Christmas won't be the same. We all committed errors according to Dad." I read it twice. Once chuckled. "Pardon me." They were still unable to grasp it. I wasn't looking for pardon. I didn't request a place at the terrible table. I constructed the table myself. Additionally, it had no place for liars, thieves, or those who only showed affection when your wallet was open. The final exam. I secretly looked through my old burner page on Facebook out of curiosity. Emma had shared a picture of a depressing, partially empty Christmas dinner table once more. Caption: "There are those who will always put pride above family. I hope you're content." Dad had left a remark underneath. "Let go and go forward, even after they left you." Mom had included an emoticon with a sorrowful face. The same broken record was still being played. The same inexpensive ink is still being used to rewrite history. Still acting as though obedience was a requirement of love. I'm still acting like I'll come crawling back to clean up the mess they caused if they screamed loud enough. When it eventually clicked, it was the epiphany. They did not despise me. Not that they weren't in love with me. They adored my ability to help them. I enjoyed being silent. I loved my guilt. They were nothing without it. And I was no longer broken. I didn't require a conflict. I didn't have to justify myself to individuals who had created a whole existence around me as a fallback option. I wasn't even hostile toward them. A black hole's ability to draw things in makes it impossible to detest it. It simply does what it does. All you need to do is go far enough away to avoid being touched by its gravity. The last motion. I strolled into town that afternoon, little and silent. It's the type of place where folks really say good morning. I completed a straightforward form when I visited the local post office. The mailbox has a new name. There is no forwarding address. I then made my way to the hardware store on foot. I put a little wooden sign that was hand-carved beneath my mailbox and purchased a new lock for my gate. Easy, unambiguous, private property. Clowns are not permitted. When some of the older folks saw it, they laughed. Good policy, one replied, nodding. I put my hands in my jacket pockets, grinned, and gazed out over the boundless, unrestricted Silver Lake. The surprising conclusion. The day I was completely at home in my new existence. I was surprised by something that happened. Someone called me. Not from Emma, not from Mother, not from Dad. Derek sent it. They nearly grew. I unwittingly saved the man. He remained silent. Just that he was now working on construction someplace in Montana. Joyful I was, thanked by him. Said that he regained his life on the day I called off the wedding. Expressed his wish that I might also find peace. He hung up after that. Don't make lengthy remarks. No commitments to keep in contact. Only two dudes. The same basic reality truly binds strangers. You can't always get out of the circus. You can burn it down sometimes. The last idea. I had lost my anger. Not depressed. Not resentful. I had just finished. And what do you know? It turns out that pyrotechnics and large gestures are not necessary for peace. It appears at peaceful times, and being aware that you are no longer a fool to anyone. The clown wasn't me. The sideshow wasn't me. I was the one who strolled away whistling, burnt down the tent, and salted the ground. Because sometimes it's not enough to just survive. Being so untouchable that no one ever dares to construct a cage for you again is sometimes the true triumph. Story 4. She naturally won the home. She does not work as a waitress, I said as my mother handed the keys to my sister. Let her pay the $72,000 after that. I saved it once. That evening, I stopped discussing taxes. On Monday, they received the letter. You were never the owner of anything. You were always the assistant. Without even glancing at me, Mom said. She extended her hand to hold the keys. That lifeless Sunday morning's calm was broken by the metal clink, smiling as though she had earned them. Emma accepted them as if the 6 years I had spent working double shifts in a cafe and putting everything into that property hadn't happened. She naturally won the home. She does not work as a waitress. This time, Mom added louder. She seemed to be looking for a location. She spoke in such a light, informal tone. You would believe she was giving someone a birthday gift, not my grave in terms of money. I was standing there with my midnight shift apron still tied at the waist and smeared by cold coffee. My hands had a bleach milk and foam odor. My legs hurt. I had a dry mouth. I then calmed it down. Straightforward. Let her pay the $72,000 after that. I saved it once. Emma blinked. Her smile wavered. My father moved in his chair, the newspaper quivering a little. For once, nobody said anything. The extra home key clinked like a bullet hitting tile as I flung it onto the shoe rack and turned to face the door. Last night, I quit discussing taxes. Quietly, but clearly, I added, on Monday, they will receive the letter. But nobody said anything. Not Emma, not Mom, and most definitely not Dad, who had been telling me all year how happy he was that at least one of his children was a hustler. As if being a hustler meant simply giving up your life to let the others to coast. I went outside and felt the chill. Compared to the heat inside, it felt great. The problem is that I didn't intend to say that. Then no. I had mentally practiced that statement 100 times previously, but I always swallowed it until she gave those keys to Emma as if it were instinctive, as if it were the way things were meant to be. But something inside of me exploded. Not too loudly, like the sound of a last receipt quietly. The printing is finished. They were unaware of my depth at the time. How much time I've spent getting ready. However they pick up knowledge. Monday. I paid for a house I didn't live in for 6 years. It began with a leak in the roof. The heater then failed. The taxes were then past due, each and every time. It was a simple favor, Mom said. And in order to safeguard her credit, I discreetly deleted every time I sent the money, roughly $72,000 over 6 years, excluding groceries and Emma's death. They referred to it as assistance. I referred to it as duty. I work as a waitress, weekends and evenings, holidays. However, I choose compensated freelancing jobs in copywriting, photography, dog sitting, and other fields. No true weekends, no vacations, and no buffer. We're constructing a future, Mom declared, so every additional dime went into that house. Dad remarked that true men look after their families. You're really fortunate not to have any real duties, Emma replied. And I think they're real. What I couldn't tell myself how long they had been plotting to cut me off, so I didn't know. It began to seep through in tiny ways. After guests left, Mom would chat about Emma's house. Once Emma settles in, she can finally start a family here, Dad stated. Family, huh? I mean, I wasn't involved. However, a Facebook post was the turning point. It was an image. As if they had won the lotto, Mom, Emma, and my aunt were standing in front of the house with a sold sign. Caption: our girl's next chapter. Very pleased with him. His initial move toward self-reliance. I spent 20 minutes staring at it. My cafe shifts coffee is getting cold in my palm. The initial phase of independence. When I took over, that house was in foreclosure. Unpaid tax penalties were piling up like stones, and Dad had spent all of his cash on his consultant period. I was not mentioned. Not a name or a tag. Not even a nod to the family's assistance, as if I were the bill-paying ghost. Everything reached a breaking point when Emma sent me a voice message. It's still with me. I get that you felt like you made a significant contribution, but you weren't actually creating anything. All you were doing was keeping things going. It's not the same thing. The vision belongs to me. You only provide assistance. It wasn't because it was hilarious that I laughed when I heard it, since it was truthful. At last they spoke it out. The mule was me, the leg-equipped wallet. 2 weeks later, however, the true bomb dropped. I discovered an old flash drive while organizing my flat. Years ago, Emma had pleaded with me to support her. I had overlooked it. While supper was cooking, I plugged it in completely. There were folders with names on them: Mark, Timo. I pay taxes to my father. I started by looking through voice recordings, manipulated messages, screenshots, and fake conversations in which I accused her of abuse. A manipulated email exchange in which I threatened to demand reimbursement. Photoshop layers of deception arranged like a destructive portfolio. Date. Stamped. Indexed. For this, she had been fabricating a history of me getting ready for something. I then opened taxes. My stomach flipped at that point. There were PDFs within. 2 of the tax forms I filled out throughout the years had my name falsified as a contribution to funds for a family company that never existed. My national ID was one of them. Connected. I didn't sign them. I didn't see them. Even though Dad's name was there, his signature appeared to have been scanned, copied, and pasted. They would take advantage of me not just financially, but also emotionally, lawfully. I contacted a lawyer the next morning. Every Tuesday, I used to offer double espressos. I forwarded the materials to her. 2 hours later, she gave another call. She called this fraud. Additionally, they are considering criminal exposure if your name appears on any official filing and you did not allow it. Exposure. That term appeals to me. I sent a message to the group chat for my family. I will no longer be responsible for the house expenditures as of Monday. Emma is also the owner of the taxes if she owns it. I wish you luck. I had no response until my father contacted me at 2 in the morning, intoxicated, slurring. That guy is ungrateful. You believe that since you played account, you are superior to us. Do you believe that this money is what you owe us for your early years? It dawned on me then. Do you think so? They all did. That my birth was a debt to them. That all I contributed was only paying off a debt. I thus made the decision to get my. I dug. I reviewed my bank records, past conversations, and emails. I created a chronology and a pattern. Then I discovered something unexpected. Emma's actual employment history. She kept it a secret from everyone. In 2020, she wasn't unemployed. She was working as a freelance crypto consultant for a client who was subsequently accused of money laundering. Her accounts were reported. You can guess whose name she used to create the initial wallet so I could test it. She uploaded a picture that same week with the caption, "New chapter, new keys, same roots." I'm grateful to everyone who had faith in me, had faith in her. I gave her money. I kept her safe. She now behaves as though she inherited the mansion I gave her from God. Silence is what they desire. Instead, they'll get flames. On a Saturday, Emma celebrated her new house. She referred to it as a modest gathering to bless the fresh starts. The family group chat was used to send out the invitation. The identical one where I informed them that I no longer paid the taxes, and they didn't reply. Isn't it funny I was still wanted there? Yes, I said, but I didn't bring wine. I came with a laptop, a speaker, and the flash drive. They weren't prepared. The residence had the appearance of a real-life Pinterest board. Golden streamers with white balloons. A charcuterie board arranged as if it were more expensive than my rent. Offering Prosecco to guests as if she hadn't committed bank-level treason, my mom was radiant. Dad laughed like a proud father as he stepped close to the grill. Emma dressed as though it were her wedding. I purposely arrived late. People turned, eyes squinted. There was a whisper. I didn't anticipate his arrival. That's right. Emma approached with phony grins. God, oh God, you did come. I was concerned that the tax confusion was still causing you distress. Mix things up. Mix up, she said. You're going to want to sit for this, I added softly as I leaned in to give her an embrace. Then I strolled right by her to the outdoor table where jazz music was playing softly on the Bluetooth speaker. After disconnecting it, I linked it to my phone. People were waiting and observing. Before we ate, I plugged in the flash drive and opened the laptop. I spoke loudly. I wanted to share something with you, a small present for the house. Emma stopped. A paper plate was dropped by Mom. Dad's lips moved. What does $72,000 in royalties get you in this household? I asked. I then pressed play. The audio was silent at first. Just a background hum of clicking. An ancient tape of my voice left a kind message. Hello, I wanted to make sure you received the transfer. I hope it's useful. It's been difficult, I know. Her voice was then manipulated to sound like it was from two separate clips. You are of no use. You only lend a hand when you're at fault. Do not act as though you are important. Some folks let out a gasp. I let it run. Another 10 seconds. Then pressed the spacebar. Made up. Spliced, I said. In a folder named Insurance, I discovered dozens of similar emails, screenshots, and fakes. Quiet. A glass clinking against the plate could be heard. I then opened the following file, which was a PDF. This is my national ID on a tax return from the previous year filed under a family LLC. This was not signed by me. I went to my dad on foot and gave him the hard copy. I dropped it on his lap as he refused to accept it. Counterfeiting, deception, federal crimes. I talked to an attorney. On Monday, the probe will begin. The noise began now. Voices murmuring, chairs scrapping. Emma, come on forward. Pale face. This day is being ruined by you. She gave a hiss. No, you did, I said. I turned to the visitors after you formed your new life on my knee. It's relatives, friends, cousins, and individuals who used to laugh at my jokes years ago, before they forget I was there. If you're questioning if this is really essential, you can ask yourself why they didn't tell you that I paid for this residence, why they concealed both my name and my assistance, substituting a fiction of Emma's independence for me. I then turned to face my mother and asked her who had written the post's caption. She purchased it herself. She remained silent, not even a shudder. However, another person did. A man in his mid-30s with a smart blazer and sunglasses dangling from his collar walked forward from the edge of the yard. "That's me," he said. Everyone pivoted. "My name is Alex," he said. "Emma's former partner. The one that cheated on her, according to her, I didn't. She lied about everything, even the money for this house, so I left." Emma did respond now. Like a kid caught in a lie, she first became scarlet, then white, and finally began to shake her head. "You have no idea what you're discussing." He cut me off. "I saw the documents. It was me who assisted her in printing them. Until I discovered that she had used her brother's ID to file them, I believed them to be authentic." Another gasp. Someone got to their feet. "Something about wanting air," was said by Maya. Alex then delivered the last blow. She informed me that she saved the data in case he became obnoxious. She said that one email would destroy him. I looked across at Emma. "Take action." I said, "Forward it. First, let's watch who gets burned." She remained still, simply trembled. My father got up. Bloodshot eyes. He gestured at me with a quivering finger. "This is the final time you have disgraced this family." I approached him, quiet, slow, then whispered, "You pay her fantasies and avoid taxes by using my identity. You weren't embarrassed by me. You were exposed by me." I then took out a letter, folded, sealed. "This comes from the finance ministry. My affidavit will be sent to them on Monday. Every family-related claim submitted under my ID will be examined by them. This covers the LLC, the home, and your deductions. That isn't real." I then gave it to my mom. "You said that because I work as a waiter, she deserves the house. All right. For the overdue taxes, let her pay the $72,000. The yard was blown by the wind. A drink was tipped. Nobody picked it up." I turned to the gate and said, "I'm done." I became invisible after giving everything I had. No more. Emma began to cry, but because everyone knew what I now knew, nobody tried to console her. Only what it could need was loved by this family. On the table, I left the speaker running. As I made my way to the car, track number 2 began. Emma was back. In a message labeled, "Use this if he turns," she spoke in a panic. "I vow to God that I will claim he hit me if he ever finds out. I'll be believed. They have faith in me." I didn't turn around. They could clearly hear it. My phone had already begun to buzz by Monday a.m. My affidavit was confirmed to have been received by the ministry. The falsified paperwork had been turned over to an investigator. The fraudulent LLC and the tax abuse. Everything was being torn apart. I didn't have to demonstrate malice. I simply had to present the evidence. Additionally, Emma had graciously saved all of the information in neat files with her name. Emma's welcome home. It wasn't a celebration. It was an autopsy's opening scene. And I had just given everyone in the room the scalpel. The fallout started at lunchtime. Dad had a tirade on Facebook. It is 3 paragraphs long. There is no punctuation. Something to do with treachery, about sons who rebel against their ancestry. He received 3 likes, one from a second cousin who most likely believed he was discussing politics. Emma turned everything off. Instagram? Lost. Facebook made a mistake. LinkedIn was silently erased. There was silence in the house. Not a single new caption. No more selfies in front of the door showing gratitude. I made a payment to avoid foreclosure. That quiet. It was everyone's realization that the script had been turned upside down. However, I wasn't finished that evening. I put the audio online. The party one, the voice memo. "I vow to God that I will claim he hit me if he ever finds out. I'll be believed. They have faith in me. Not even remark was necessary on my part." I only uploaded a single line of text to the file. This is what she said about me. For years, I kept quiet. I no longer keep quiet. What about the internet? Within a day, it detonated. There were almost 300,000 places in the post. Frame by frame, they dissected it, stitched it, and created TikToks. On a live feed, one lawyer even checked the audio for validity. I had strangers on my side, complete strangers. People who said, "I live this," sent direct messages. "I appreciate you speaking up." Others provided pro-gratis legal assistance. Reporters contacted them. The next morning, I received a call from a local podcast presenter. "We would want to hear your tale." I said, she said. "Everything," I concurred. That afternoon, we made a recording. I refrained from crying. I didn't become angry. I just talked about how family can use shame and lineage as weapons and what it's like to give everything and be treated like a living ATM, about how I nearly trust them. Because until I was helpful, I had no value. This was how I concluded the episode. I replaced them with peace, and they replaced me with my own money. Within hours of the episode's release, it went viral. That surprised me, but it seems like many were eager to hear it. Except Emma wasn't. "Please read before you destroy me." "Completely" was the heading of the 3-page email she gave me. It began while I was in pain. I had no idea how to seek for assistance. I didn't intend for things to go this bad. She then asked if I would be prepared to publicly clarify that her voice memo was taken out of context and that she never physically harmed me. I didn't answer. After a day, she sent a voicemail to follow up. "You have no idea what's going on. I might lose my job. They are contemplating bringing charges." I kept it. I didn't respond. Rather, I wrote one last post. A picture of my new flat. Bright windows, spotless walls, a coffee table, and one armchair. Captioned, "This is the appearance of tranquility. There are no missing keys. Only my name appears on my paycheck." The greatest thing, though, 3 days later, it arrived. An official ministry notification. The tax ID of her father had been detected. An official inquiry had begun. The family LLC's claims were all put on hold. 2 years' worth of returns were blocked when they got in touch with his accountant. I didn't even feel like I had won. I was liberated. That evening, he attempted to contact me. Left a message on the voicemail. "You got your message across. Well done. Are you content now?" The identical line my mother had used once before was employed by him. "Are you content now?" As if peace were illegal, as if self-preservation were treachery. That weekend, I blocked his number. I made my website live. Not only a blog, an undertaking. I gave it the name Dauntless, a digital repository for those who left abusive households after experiencing years of financial mistreatment, a location where they may speak their story aloud or anonymously, including voice notes and screenshots, if necessary with hard disks. It received more than 20,000 entries in a week. I believe the people who were desperate to be believed. A week later, I received an email from a journalist stating that my tale had started a movement. When Emma eventually returned to the internet, did you know what she posted? A picture shows her holding a coffee and wearing sunglasses while standing on a street corner. Captioned, "In their healing narrative, people will always find a way to make you the antagonist." I didn't take a screenshot. Since I was no longer healing, I didn't reply. I was still alive. 3 months have passed since I left. I haven't felt like choking for 3 months after hearing the term family. They are still making an effort. Mom sent me lengthy, meandering letters. I was labeled emotionally unstable by one. The next person claimed to have forgiven me as if I had been the victim, as if she had the right to forgive. Dad posted a video of himself standing in front of the house on Facebook in an attempt to go public. He remarked that legacy was the foundation of this. My son now wants to destroy it. I was tagged by him. I don't care, therefore I didn't respond. I owe him no response. I received a call from an unidentified number 2 weeks ago. My aunt was the one who chuckled in the family chat when my dad shared the video of me giving him free auto repair. Emma needed to sell the house, she explained. She muttered that taxes were too expensive. They were unaware of the extent of your cover, didn't want to acknowledge it or didn't recognize it. She asked if I would think about discussing it with the family, said that this has progressed sufficiently. It hasn't even begun, I informed her. I've had enough of being modest. While I still have the original manuscript, I've finished allowing others to alter the plot. So I did something that they didn't anticipate. I purchased a little downtown storefront. Above it are bright windows. I hung a pristine metal sign. Bonds are not the same as blood. Below, fix, take back, rebuild. It's not a company. It conveys a message. I no longer fix vehicles. I assist individuals in repairing themselves. Legal recommendations, budgeting, trauma on an emotional level. Kids like me can navigate. I'm an adult. Those who donated till their bones broke were told they weren't thankful they had bones at all. Last week, IMA stopped by. I caught sight of her. She saw the sign but chose not to enter. The storefront window was damaged a few days later. Spray paint in red. Just one word, a traitor. I took a while to clean it. I did not take action for a week. I then uploaded a picture of it along with a fresh caption. Perhaps you were never the nation I believed I was defending if telling the truth makes me a traitor. 2 hours and almost 100,000 likes. People from all across the world DM'd me. According to one Berlin lady, she showed her therapist the audio from Emma's party. A Brazilian man shared a picture of his own home door. A connection engraved into the wood is not the same as blood. Retaliation is no longer the focus. Reclaiming yourself and letting people know you're not insane are the main goals. You were deceived. The lights are finally back on. For my part, I modified my phone number. New address, new phone. Group discussions are over. Those who failed to show up when I was sick with the illness will no longer remind me of my birthday, or just wanted to be seen or couldn't afford the rent. I no longer receive calls from myself. Not because she gave up, since she at last comprehends. Without respect, there can be no entry. I drove past the house the day it was put up for auction, not to boast, but to bid farewell. As a stranger with a realtor approached and pointed at the roof I had paid for, I parked across the street and watched. They didn't grin, as I saw. Who prevented that roof from falling was unknown to them. Excellent. That house is no longer mine, and they don't need to know it. Nor are they. I left something in the mailbox before I went by car. No address for return. On the reverse in Sharpie is a folded copy of the final ownership transfer. In your tale, I am not the antagonist. The one who departed before it transformed me into one is me. A banner hangs on the rear wall, and I switched the sign to opened the door, and sat down after driving to my business. Large and audacious. Not supported by family. They may depict me as the enemy all they want, so I sit back in my chair, sip my coffee, and grin. However, my anger has subsided. I am at liberty, and the sweetest kind of tranquility is that. Story 5. Hello. I'm 29 years old, and my name is Brooklyn. This is the most important lesson I've ever learnt. Not every bruise can be seen. Neglect and silence may cause some of the most severe injuries. By being raised in a home where people observe you but never really pay attention, that was my world. Oscar and Sandra had me as their second child. My parents are blood relatives, yet they are rarely affectionate. The son was Martin, my elder brother. All of them circled. It was not something he had to earn. There was nothing for him to prove. They gave him their eyes the instant he opened them in this world. Martin received cake for a B grade and accolades at every parent-teacher conference when I was growing up, while I received reprimands for anything less than flawless. They would feign a grin if I carried a school certificate home. Dad virtually had a celebration whenever Martin scored a goal in soccer. I stopped bringing them after a while. I have wonderful news. I realized early and quit trying to get their favor. They didn't want to brag about me as a kid. The toughest times were over the holidays. Martin received gym memberships, new shoes, and the newest technology. Every year, I received the same sentence: inexpensive sweaters and diaries. We are aware of your love for the little things. The presents weren't the source of the pain. It was the work, the reminder that I was the last thing on the list. My grandma Jennifer was the only person who ever gave me a sense of belonging. 2 towns away, she resided in a pretty brick home. Her hands were always working in the garden, folding clothes and baking. But whether I was 5 or 25, Mom never seemed too busy to sit with me. She gave me the impression that I was important. No forced grins or comparisons were made. Only love, sincerity, and the warmth I so much desired. "Brooklyn," she would say, holding my hand across the teacup, "you're not invisible. Not to me. They will eventually understand what they wasted." For years, I clung to those words. Each time I was held accountable for things I didn't accomplish, while Martin received accolades for completing the bare minimum. Every time Mom boasted about Martin's phony business endeavors in public, she disregarded me. Grandma's voice came to mind every time my father ordered me to quit chasing attention when all I was trying to do was be heard. However, hope is brittle when everyone around you acts as though you're in the way. For the most of my adolescence and early adulthood, I learned how to minimize my pain while avoiding conflict. Martin's engagement was made possible by me. I volunteered to do wedding-related errands. Mom bought a luxury gown for my future sister-in-law, Vanessa, purely for pictures, and I kept silent when she handed me a worn dress to wear as a bridesmaid. I completed everything. I still thought that if I was nice enough, kind enough, and helpful enough, maybe one day they would love me too, not because I was weak. I was mistaken because I was unaware that they had plans much more sinister than simply ignoring me. They intended to obliterate me entirely, and a lie was the beginning of it all. A lie so loud and so well placed that it would almost ruin me, but not before it revealed every murky aspect of the reality they were attempting to conceal. The incident took place on a rainy Sunday afternoon. I had just finished helping Jennifer plant lavender in her backyard garden when she beckoned me in for tea on one of those calm, gloomy days that evoke memories like threads. The air smelled of fresh dirt and honey, and the kettle hissed on the burner. Her house gave me a sense of peace, security, and visibility. We took a seat at the little round table beside the window. She extracted a sizable envelope from the side drawer. When she put it in front of me, her face was serious, but I thought it may be old letters or recipes. "For a long time, I've been intending to show you this." "Brooklyn," she replied softly, "the time has come." Where inside, I slowly went through the official paperwork, property deeds, bank records, and a copy of her final will and testament. As I started to comprehend what I was looking at, the house, her money, and a substantial stock portfolio, my fingers started to shake a little. In all, jewelry has been handed down through the centuries. The whole estate, valued at around $4 million, was being bequeathed to me. Tears filled my eyes. "Why me, Grandma?" She put her hand over mine and reached across the table. "Because you've earned what they took for granted throughout your life. I saw how they handled you, how they made you feel insignificant while elevating Martin. You didn't ever snap. You never gave up. They will never comprehend the strength you possess." I was at a loss for words. I couldn't speak for a change. To prevent drama, she might have divided the estate and handed it all to Martin. However, she chose me. Not because I inquired. I had just put up with it, not because I asked for it. She made it plain that she had not yet told anyone. "Not even my folks. They'll sense it, though, I'm sure." She sighed as she spoke. "Martin, that boy in particular, is really envious," and she was absolutely correct. At first it was subtle. "Stop responding to my texts, Martin." He would make jokes that sounded more like jabs if I showed up for a family gathering. "Be careful, everybody. It's likely that Brooklyn is here to make notes for her estate. Grandma's particular idea must be wonderful to know." He had a suspicion, but no concrete knowledge. And that mistrust became poison. Mom began to remark that certain people were constantly attempting to control the elderly. When the wheel is red, Dad would laugh and remark, "I can't wait to see who's really loyal." They were being subtle, they believed. They weren't. "Let them chat," Jennifer kept telling me. "People will attack your name when they don't have your work." It was more than just words, though. Martin had a plan, something unsightly. It would distort everything I held dear and turn it into a weapon, and he would hit me without warning. The day of his wedding, Martin's wedding, came with phony grins and ideal weather. As you might think, the location was a lavish lakeside house with crystal chandeliers, white flowers, and an aisle long enough to accommodate a fashion runway. Every detail said, "Look at me," which, to be honest, was ideal for my brother. My grandma had given me a delicate blue dress which I wore. Tasteful, yet not ostentatious or inexpensive. Where I could, I offered assistance, arranging flowers and soothing Vanessa. When the planner forgot the coffee, they had to arrange the seating chart. Martin and my parents weren't the reason I did it. For Vanessa, I did it. I always got along well with her, and she had never made me feel like I didn't belong even if we weren't really close. When I got there, though, I could sense the tension. I was hardly recognized by my parents. Sandra smiled at me, but it was just a half grin. Oscar completely avoided me. Martin treated me as if I were just another visitor, not his sister, not someone who had put in the extra effort to make the event go more smoothly. The primary audience did not include Jennifer. She was seated close to the front, as usual, calm and quiet. Throughout the ceremony, I looked at her many times. Her eyes were warm with certainty as she nodded slightly each time. The ceremony was lovely in its own right, naturally. Under a white rose arch, Martin and Vanessa exchanged vows. And there was a little clap from everyone. Peace seemed to have come, if only momentarily. But in a home where animosity is the foundation, peace does not endure. The DJ turned down the music for the speeches later in the reception. People toasted the couple one by one. Jokes were told by the best man. After a charming tale from Vanessa's maid of honor, Martin took the mic. As soon as he began speaking, I realized something was amiss. He had no smile on his face. His voice trembled with tightly controlled rage rather than emotion. "I've got something to say." He started looking around the throng. Even though it's difficult, I can't pretend that everything is all right on the most significant day of my life. The room became silent. The servers themselves froze. He went on, "I learned this morning that someone I trusted who is very close to me stole $150,000 from us. Our honeymoon budget. It's gone." Like a ripple on water, a gasp swept across the crowd. Then he spoke it. "It was Brooklyn, my sister." My blood froze. My stomach dropped. There was a moment, just one, where I thought he was joking, that this was some kind of messed up attempt at humor, but his expression. Ice cold. I stood there in complete shock. "What are you discussing?" He turned to me in front of everyone. "Don't play dumb. You had access to the documents. You helped with the planning. You knew exactly where the payments were scheduled." "That's not true," I said, my voice cracking. "I didn't touch anything. I didn't even know where that money was kept." Vanessa looked confused, her eyes darting between us. She hadn't expected this. No one had. Then Sandra stood up from her table, her voice shrill. "How could you, Brooklyn, at your own brother's wedding? You've embarrassed us enough." Oscar's jaw tightened. His hands balled into fists. I could feel something dark building inside him. Something far more dangerous than words. Martin wasn't just angry. He was acting. He had rehearsed this. He wanted the world to see me as a criminal. And in that moment, no one, not even I, could have guessed how far my father was about to take it. I barely had time to react. My heart pounded so hard. I could feel it in my throat. All eyes were on me, and every second felt like a spotlight burning into my skin. Then it happened. Oscar. My father stood up so fast his chair screeched across the floor. His face was flushed red, eyes wild with fury. Without saying a word, he marched across the hall like a man possessed. The wedding photographer who had just completed getting the last group portrait stood at the front with his DSLR camera set on a professional gimbal. Oscar stormed right toward him. "Hey, gentlemen, please don't touch that," the photographer called, puzzled, but it was too late. Oscar snatched the camera off the gimbal with both hands, jerked the gadget out of its stabilizing grasp, and then still gripping it by the gimbal like a club, turned around and stormed right toward me. I didn't even move. I couldn't. My body froze in amazement. All I managed was a mumbled "Dad," and then he swung the hefty camera, still attached to its base, crashed against the side of my forehead with a force so intense it seemed like thunder erupted in my skull. I plummeted, suddenly tumbling sideways against a table glass. Shattered plates smashed to the floor. Someone yelled. The pain came in waves, acute and blinding. My brain ached. My ears sounded like a fire alarm, and blood flowed down my temple. I had trouble opening my eyes. In my mouth, I tasted metal. The guests let out a gasp. Some people had their lips covered. Others recoiled in dread as they heard my ears ring. Sandra's voice was audible to me. Out loud. Poisonous. She was worthy. She is a thief and a liar. I brought up a monster. Nobody stood up for me. Only one person. Enough, Jennifer was the one. With the vigor that only an enraged grandma can muster, she pushed through the crowd. She had no tears in her eyes. They were on fire. Beside me, she fell to her knees and yelled, "Now dial 911." She took out her phone and did it herself when no one reacted quickly enough. She spoke in a steely tone to the dispatcher. At a wedding, my granddaughter was attacked in front of 200 people. Brain injury. Blood is present. I really need the cops and an ambulance. There are 3 people engaged in the assault. Her brother, mother, and father. I'll testify against each and every one of them. I recall holding her hand while I was slipping in and out of consciousness. She had powerful fingers, steady. Police and paramedics showed up in a matter of minutes. The wedding venue was illuminated like a murder scene by the flashing red and blue lights. And it had turned into just that. Officers surrounded Martin, Sandra, and Oscar as I was being placed onto the stretcher. However, an amazing incident occurred before anybody could be removed. My grandma, my pillar of support. Jennifer approached the microphone at the front of the gathering. She cleared her throat. The visitors looked at her, startled into silence. With a strong, unflinching voice, she remarked, raising her hand, "I want everyone here to hear what I have to say before these 3 are taken away." The room fell quiet. The faint static of the microphone in Jennifer's fingers, the buzzing of the lights, and the far-off sirens slowly dying in the distance were all audible. Now everyone was watching her. This lady in a lavender clothing looks elegant, standing in a courtroom like a judge, composed of gilt and flowers. She was standing next to the cops getting ready to arrest Oscar, Sandra, and Martin. They didn't even glance at her. They were unable to. This young woman, my granddaughter Brooklyn, has suffered a lifetime of neglect, verbal abuse, and now physical assault, not from strangers, but from the very people who are supposed to love her the most, Jennifer continued after taking a deep breath. In the audience, there were whispers. A few visitors gave slow nods. Others simply gazed with wide eyes. I want to be clear. Brooklyn has been officially named as the recipient of my entire estate, which includes every house account, investment, and treasure worth $4 million. I was the only one who made that choice. She has shown herself deserving of my trust and my legacy, not because she pleaded for it or tried to deceive me. Vanessa put her hand to her mouth as she stood at the edge of the crowd. Tears filled her eyes not only from shock, but also from comprehension. As she turned to face Oscar, these 3 Jennifers spoke. Not only have Martin and Sandra embarrassed themselves. Out of sheer greed and animosity, they have tried to ruin someone. and I'll be pushing for each of them to face criminal charges. They are not deserving of being taken away today alone. They should be recognized for who they truly are: dangerous, cowardly, and cruel. Among the guests was a murmur of agreement. A few gave a gentle clap. Some people sobbed. After giving Jennifer a polite nod, the officers escorted the three of them. They were now fully stripped of their phony superiority and headed for the door. At that moment, Vanessa came forward. She went over to Martin, whose hands were already secured behind his back, and everyone turned. The wooden floor made a harsh clicking sound when her heels touched it. She had an expressionless blank face. Chilly. She remained silent. Rather, she removed her diamond engagement ring, reached out, and let it fall at his feet. Clink. After one bounce, it landed on the bottom of his dress shoes. "We're done," she muttered. "Permanently." Her parents abandoned Martin and left with her, clearly embarrassed and furious. Martin remained silent. He was unable to. His scarlet face was contorted in bewilderment and incredulity, as if he was unable to comprehend that his falsehoods had been exposed in public. There was silence in the room as the officers led them out. As the paramedics fastened my stretcher, Jennifer quickly raced to my side, turning away from the microphone. She said to the EMTs, "I'm going with her. Don't even consider preventing me." They didn't. The shutters of cameras and the muttering of the journalists reverberated from outside as the doors opened. However, I had stopped hearing it. As we drove away in the ambulance, I could only feel my grandmother's fingers firmly grasp mine. And I experienced something strong for the first time in my life. Nor embarrassment, nor fear. Fairness. Getting up at last. The ambulance left the scene of the incident. However, the wedding was disintegrating into dust behind us. What should have been a picture-perfect celebration had devolved into an immense controversy. Decorations were being torn down by the venue workers. Outside guests stood in small groups, checking their phones for updates and murmuring in disbelief. A few were phoning ride-sharing services. Others simply departed without saying anything. However, one thing was evident. The nuptials were over. Don't dance. Not a cake. No. The first dance, only humiliation and shackles. Within the ambulance. The paramedics did their best to gently wipe the blood from my forehead. One of them replied, "You're lucky," in a low voice. The camera struck hard. "Your skull could have been broken." I gave a feeble nod. Still in a fog. Not only because it hurt, but also because it was all so chaotic. Jennifer sat next to me and kept my hand throughout. She didn't weep. She spoke without faltering. She simply remained constant, robust like an oak tree's roots, refusing to lose your temper at the hospital. When the ER arrived, I was hurried into observation. My forehead cut was cleansed, sutures were put in, and a CT scan was performed to rule out internal bleeding. Fortunately, the findings were unambiguous. No long-term harm. However, they spent days warning me about possible bruises and migraines. Jennifer went outside to answer calls in the interim. By the time she got back, she had already made contact with a lawyer, scheduled a consultation with Mark Wilson, and made arrangements for a police statement to be obtained while I was sleeping. She came back to my bedside and said, "You don't have to worry. I'm taking care of it. You just concentrate on getting better." However, I wasn't finished resting in that hospital bed, listening to the monitors beep and gazing at the ceiling tiles. I decided. I wasn't going to recover in silence. I was going to stand up for every birthday, not just for what they did during the wedding. They disregarded all of the lies. They disseminate all insults. They pretended to be advised. I unlocked my phone and started writing down everything that night after the nurses had turned down the lights and Jennifer had curled up on the gas chair. The incidents, the suffering, the evidence. Because we were going to battle tomorrow. And I had the truth on my side this time. Sunlight filtered through my hospital room's blinds the following morning. It was golden and soft, as if it was unaware that the world had collapsed the previous evening. My head hurt. Above my temple, the stitches are still fresh, but my judgment was no longer affected by the discomfort. It made it sharper. It didn't break me. I felt aware and alive, all set. With her reading glasses perched on the top of her nose and her phone in one hand, Jennifer was already dressed and stood by the window. Like a general getting ready for battle, she had been up early making calls, planning the next course of action. Calmly, she put her phone in her handbag and stated, "You have an appointment at 2 p.m." The state's top lawyer, Mark Wilson, is well versed in dealing with those who believe they are untouchable. I forced myself into a sitting position. "Everything is being filed." She gave a nod. "Everything." By the afternoon, I was sitting across from Mark Wilson, a shrewd-eyed man in his 40s who exuded confidence without having to speak. Law books and framed headlines of court victories adorned his office. The way he listened, not just to answer, but to understand, was what most comforted me, though. I took him through every detail, including the physical attack in front of more than 200 people, the whispered remarks and the years of neglect, names, dates, and even written notes that Jennifer had discreetly recorded throughout the years were used to bolster my story. I then gave the USB disk to him. It included everything. Audio of Sandra calling me a thief, a video recordings of the wedding guests, cell phone clips of Oscar swinging the camera, a Jennifer's speech at the microphone, Vanessa dropping the engagement ring at Martin's feet, and numerous screenshots of Martin's prior texts attempting to scare me into avoiding getting involved in Grandma's legal matters. Mark silently went over everything. He folded his hands and leaned back when he was done. "It's not only a family problem. This is malevolent intent to prevent inheritance, criminal assault, and slander. All three are subject to charges: Martin, Oscar, and Sandra." I gave a nod. "And a public is what I desire. I've come out of hiding." "That's good," he replied, "since we'll be bringing civil and criminal cases. One for damages, the other for justice. And trust me, this will be taken seriously by the court." Despite having resources, influence, and witnesses, they continued to choose violence. Jennifer took out her packet of files. Well prepared, stapled, tabbed. A copy of my will is attached. It was notarized beforehand. Brooklyn is named as the only inheritor of my $4 million fortune. They attempted to destroy her before it could happen because they knew this was coming. Mark spoke quietly and definitively. "Then we'll make sure they regret trying." I signed each paper that night: official affidavits, legal authorizations, and assault reports. I provided the police my whole video statement, and I even granted the hospital personnel permission to publish my medical record as proof. I was no longer only a sister or a daughter. I was a survivor and a plaintiff, and I had power they couldn't take away for the first time in my life. The fragrance of ancient wood and floor polish filled the courthouse. Too silent, formal, and cold. However, as soon as I entered, accompanied by Jennifer and lawyer Mark Wilson, I had the impression that I was entering something far more sacred than a structure. Here the murmurs would give way to evidence and the falsehoods would ultimately perish, where the truth would no longer be sorry. Martin, Oscar, and Sandra sat at the defendant's table wearing formal attire that made them appear uneasy. They appeared to be still attempting to maintain some kind of dignity as seen by their rigid facial expressions. However, the true narrative was revealed by their eyes. Fear, shame, anger. It was different on my side of the room. Jennifer sat behind me with her chin up and her hands folded neatly in her lap. Mark was standing to my left, calm and confident with his laptop open and his papers neatly organized. I inhaled deeply and recalled the sting of stitches and the hospital monitoring. My father's angry voice slammed into my head. They no longer frightened me. The prosecution played the wedding video on the large screen to start the trial. There were gasps and horrified quiet in a room that had been a place of applause and rejoicing. Sandra yelled, "She deserves it!" And many jurors cringed as Oscar struck me with the DSLR camera. A woman in the gallery muttered, "My God," in the background. Jennifer's speech followed. My whole $4 million fortune is being lawfully transferred to Brooklyn. The courtroom shook as though it had suddenly discovered the true reason for everything. The medical records followed. Our attending physician provided a Zoom testimony describing the extent of my head injury, the edema, and the danger I had encountered. Then Vanessa arrived. Like a silk-clad hurricane, she entered the courtroom. Be calm. Written. Every one of Martin's falsehoods was exposed by her evidence. No honeymoon fund has ever existed. The narrative was made up by Martin the night before the wedding. He told Sandra he was going to make Brooklyn pay and destroy her in front of everyone after a strange phone conversation. He informed me. Grandma might change the will if he could make her look like a thief, she remarked, addressing the jurors directly. For a minute, Mark let that sentence hanging. Pulling a pin from a grenade and setting it in the center of the room was like that. Jennifer's testimony followed. Sharp, solid, and serene. She described to the judge how she had seen Brooklyn endure years of silent suffering, how her bravery and honesty led her to be selected as her inheritor. This attack wasn't an accident, she made plain. It was the last in a long line of mistreatment. At last I got up. I described to the jury how Oscar and Sandra always made Martin the center of the world when I was a kid, how I ended up being forgotten in my own house. I talked about the wedding minute by time and what it was like to be publicly and physically abused, as though my existence was completely unimportant to them. I'm not here to exact retribution. I came here because I will never be free if I allow them to silence me again, I said. Furthermore, I refuse to lead a tranquil life in order to preserve the reputation of those who shattered me when I sat down. The room was so quiet that it seemed like stone. The defense attempted to characterize everything as a familial miscommunication. However, the jurors didn't believe it. The witness statements, the text messages, the audio, and the video. They were unavoidable. That same day, the verdict was rendered. I feel guilty. Oscar received a 3-year jail term for violent assault. Sandra was sentenced to 18 months for emotional abuse and complicity. Martin, the mastermind, received a 2-year sentence for malicious intent to hinder inheritance, false allegation, and slander. I will never forget the judge's parting remarks. Violence under the guise of familial devotion is not acceptable in this court. Favoritism and abuse are not protected by the law. The bailiffs escorted them out. I didn't grin. I refrained from crying. All I did was breathe. It felt for the first time in a very long time that justice was a reality. The freedom I gained from the courtroom followed me everywhere. I sat with Jennifer at her house a week after the trial. She had given me that package of legal documents months prior, and we were sitting at the same table, our safe haven. There were no cautions or hints of what may happen this time. There was just tranquility this time. This is the last transfer, she murmured quietly, taking out a huge folder of papers and setting a gold pen next to it. The assets, the house, the accounts. You now own everything. Brooklyn. It's finished. For the first time, someone trusted me enough to offer me everything without expecting me to be anything other than myself, so I swallowed hard, not because I wasn't ready. I carefully and gently signed the documents. After I finished, Jennifer said, "My girl, you've turned pain into power," as she leaned over and placed her palm on mine. Now put it to use. And I did. I didn't take a Caribbean trip or relocate to a home in the hills with the bequest. No, I took part of the money and utilized it to create something long-lasting. I came into the Haven Project, a nonprofit organization that specializes in assisting young people and women who have experienced emotional trauma. Unfair allegations or neglect in the family, I am liked by others. Those in need of a secure environment, to be heard, to get better without being kept silent. For victims of psychological or domestic violence, we provided legal assistance. For people escaping harmful familial situations, emergency lodging is available, counseling for mental health, workshops on financial planning, and community above all. Jennifer became our counselor and honorary co-founder. She was not going to retire. She brought fresh tea, strong advice, and her immaculately ironed shirt and pearls to the workplace every morning. She was referred to as Grandmother J by everybody, and she is loved by everybody. We grew quickly. Our facility was servicing more than 100 families in only 6 months. Nobody ever said I thought I was the only one for more than a week. You're not invisible. Jennifer reminded me every time I informed them. No more. I was more than simply mending myself, therefore I threw all of my energies into that spot. I was assisting others in finding their voice again before shame or guilt buried it. My parents are still serving their sentences in prison. Martin, he failed in his attempt to appeal his sentence. After being released, he reportedly relocated to a different state, and as of the last time I looked, he was having difficulty finding employment. I didn't forgive him, but I also didn't want him to suffer. Vanessa. She once paid me a visit. We drank coffee. She said she was sorry. She never owed me one, I informed her. I didn't hold it against her since she had faith in Martin. We had a cordial separation. Jennifer and I, on the other hand, kept expanding the Haven Project together while grinning at the news articles we were assisting in creating and laughing about old memories. Because there's no better sense of serenity than providing a path for someone else to climb out to after you've escaped hell. It's interesting how life can seem like a storm for so long that you're unsure of what to do when things finally settle down. On certain evenings, after everyone has gone home, I sit on the Haven Project's porch. I watch the lights flicker across the flower beds we constructed together while drinking chamomile tea from my grandmother's favorite porcelain mug. Daisy lavender. Sunflowers. Flowers that, despite tough soil, do not wither. Like myself, I frequently reflect on how nearly I was removed from both my identity and the family history. How quickly a falsehood may spread when it comes from the individuals you use to trust the most. The wrath of a father, the blind cruelty of a mother, and the jealousy of a brother. Everyone in the room is prepared to assume the worst. Concerning a lady who never harmed them. I no longer live in that tale, though. I'm living in a different era. One where truth yelled aloud, justice substituted quiet, and the ones who had broken me were revealed beneath the courtroom lights. One in which the lady whom everyone sought to eradicate penned her own history. Do the scars still hurt occasionally? Are the recollections still painful? Indeed. However, they no longer characterize me. Right now. The ladies that enter our doors each week determine who I am. Leaving with dignity despite bearing shame and dread. Jennifer's hand defines who I am. You are enough every time she says it. And occasionally I remember that hospital moment. Bruised, broken, and humiliated. And I picture myself whispering, just wait to that version of myself. I've already written your ending so they can't write it. I'm Brooklyn. And I'm no longer the girl they attempted to quiet, the scapegoat sister or the neglected daughter. I am a leader, a survivor, and a creator of safe spaces despite those who believed they could destroy me. They merely made me more aware of how indestructible I really am. Please remember to like the video if this tale touched you or caused you to reconsider the importance of justice and the truth. For more impactful real-life tales every week, leave a comment below and subscribe to the channel. We can keep voicing voices that should be heard thanks to your support. Thank you for seeing, and never forget. Never does the truth